Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
It's me, Egbert, once again. I'm the new owner of this station. I went out and hired the best talk radio consultant, Jeff Allen from News Talk STL, and told him to hire the worst talent he could find. Jeff did exactly as I told him. Ladies and gentlemen, here are Brad and John.
It is the BJ Show. You can check us out on bjshow.co. You can, and John, by the way, have you found the change on the website yet?
I did.
Where is it? Tell me what you found.
Well, it just, I don't know how you did this so quickly, but you pulled the audio from our last conversation about John Ashcroft, and you talked about the difference of men that get it up to 12 o'clock versus just 9 o'clock. And I think you can click on it, and you can get a product that'll help you, Brad, go, you know, if you're not quite at 12 like you used to be, they can get you back up to 12. That's what you put on there, right?
No, it's wrong, John. It's right there. It's right there on the front page, the very front page. Look at the very front page. I'll give you a hint. Look at the front page.
I will look at it after we get off the air. I want to give you my undivided attention right now, Brad.
Right. Okay. In full disclosure, I met, her name is
Danielle Tormala.
Danielle Tormala. I met her, I don't know, 6 months ago. When John Schneider was the chief of the Wentzville Fire Department, we did a thing with them. They're a good sponsor of our other station across the hall of Westplex 107.1. And John Schneider, instead of John Schaefer, John Schneider and John Ledoux have both moved over to Central County Fire and Rescue. They got a chance, both the assistant chief and the chief, both the two Johns, moved over to the Central County Fire and Rescue, which back in the day, I believe, was the old St. Peter's Fire Department. And they're now the chiefs there. But when they were at Wentzville, we did a podcast for them, which we recorded and put on one of our programs, one of our websites, and also they put on their website as well, too. And he would bring in guests from the community, and one of the times we brought in Danielle Tormala, who was the superintendent at the time. And, John, I have to be honest with you, I was very impressed with her.
Okay. What was impressive about her?
Well, first off, she's very, very, very well-spoken. John asked a lot of questions. She was on top of everything. One of the interesting things was they had a relationship with the fire department, Wentzville Fire Department, where they had this attendance thing, which I thought was really cool, where they had a deal where if the students had perfect attendance, all the students had perfect attendance, they put all their names into like a hat and they pulled out one of the names, and that particular student got picked up at their house in one of the Wentzville fire trucks and driven to school in the Wentzville fire truck and pulled up in front of the school, whatever school they went to, with the sirens blaring and the horns honking and the whole bit. I thought to myself, you know, that's a really cool idea. You know what I mean? It's to the point where...
I do. It also encourages kids to come to school when they're sick because they want to get a prize. So let's infect all your other classmates and come to class and spread your germs. But yeah, other than that, like riding in a fire truck's awesome.
John, you have a way of changing things.
I'm just going to pop the balloon, but go ahead. Brad. Yeah,
right.
so you were impressed by that idea. Well, so let's talk a little bit about what happened to her.
Well, okay. I don't want to sound like I'm conservative school board people, but what I don't understand is, and here, I'll step back here a minute and give a little bit of background. My mom, who was a WashU graduate, just like you, John. My mom and dad were both WashU graduates. My mom had her degree in speech pathology, and she worked at, I don't know if it's still there or not, Central Institute for the Deaf. Are you familiar with that? Which is a part of,
I'm familiar with it.
Which is a part of Washington University. And my mom taught special ed kids for years. A lot of speech things. And unfortunately, a lot of her students were students that had complication during birth, where they had oxygen deprivation, whatever the situation was.
Sure.
And they had some, let's call it some brain damage, which is really what it was.
Yeah.
They oxygen deprived during birth, whatever it was. Okay.
I got you.
my mom sort of burnt out on that, and she went back to school and got her master's degree at SIU Edwardsville. And at the time, I think was a instructional technology or something like that, which was the new word for library sciences. So in other words, she got a degree in research and library stuff like that, and she got a job as the librarian at Kirby Junior High.
That's right, Kirby Cougars.
We were the K-Hawks when I was there.
Oh, well, different era.
Yeah, okay. And my mom was the librarian there, okay? I don't know what's happened to the librarians at these schools, but it's like, why are they bringing in the porno books? And when I say the porno books, how many videos have I watched on YouTube where you see a concerned parent show up at the school board meeting and proceed to read out loud passages from some of these books that are in the school library, and they get thrown out because of them being vulgar? Now,
with the irony.
The irony of that is that if they can't read the book at the school board meeting, what's the book doing in the library? Okay?
Absolutely, Brad.
Now, I go back to, different era with my mother. I mean, my mother, and the other librarians would have never brought books like that into a library. Never, ever, 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 ever.
Of course not. So that was one of the controversies. Let's bring it back to Danielle Tormala. So there were controversies in Wentzville as it involves explicit material in books, right?
Right, and also it was the bathroom thing. Here we go again. The bathroom thing, I've told the story. I knew not real well, but he worked with us for Salvation Army. The guy, I can't remember his name now, who's the president of Lindenwood, and he got in trouble, not in trouble with the staff, but he got in trouble with some of the students because one of the students were pushing for a third bathroom. They wanted all the buildings at Lindenwood to be retrofitted with a third bathroom. Now, those of you who are in the construction trades know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not like you just, take a little area and you knock a wall down and you put a couple toilets in.
Nope.
There's tremendous infrastructure changes you have to make. You have to put in the piping, the venting.
It has to be up to code. You have to get all kinds of red tape.
Extremely expensive, okay? And he fought back against it. He says, hey, there's 2 bathrooms. Take one, pick one, and use whichever bathroom you want, okay? She got into the same... I won't use the P word, but the same what match with those parents as well too, because I think wasn't the story she did a flip-flop on that? Didn't she come out and say at first that they were going to do some kind of accommodation for the students who didn't feel they were male or female, and then they turned that around? Wasn't that the story?
I think the issue was that they had a closed session to discuss whether or not they would have these transgender or allow boys and girls restrooms, but it was a closed session which violated the Sunshine Law. I thought that was the crux of the whole thing as it involved the transgenders.
And the conservatives went after her like you wouldn't believe. Matter of fact, once again, in full disclosure, the only school board member that bought advertising on Westplex 1071 for $1 a piece was David Biesenthal, who is a teacher in he's a teacher in Fort Zumwalt, and he is living in the Wentzville School District, and he won. Now, obviously, he's not Mr. Conservative, but I met him. I recorded a commercial with him. I was very impressed by the guy. I mean, even though I had a brief encounter with him, we talked for 15, 20 minutes about his vision for Wentzville schools. And he essentially said, we need to get back to basics. We need to get back to basics of teaching and curriculum and what's really important. And I say that all day long.
You do, yep.
But what's wrong with the and once again, and matter of fact, if you got the John Combest scorecard, this is going to be number 4. The conservatives are still butthurt after losing every single school board race they were in this election that was earlier this month. And remember, we talked about the fact that every single person and I'm making fun of him. I like Marc Cox. I think he does a great job. I have a lot of respect for him as a journalist. He did that at Channel 4 for several years. I think 25 years or something like that. Now he's on 97.1. He's on the air against us right now. I think he's a wonderful guy, does a great job, but he was really upset about the fact that he had his own list of essentially curated candidates who were all conservative. They did a big thing at the Soda Museum down in downtown St. Charles on Main Street, the whole bit. And he was shocked that not one of his people made it, okay? And I say part of the reason is I'm going like, I have to be honest, I think some of these conservatives are Looney Tunes. I mean, I really do. I think they're like bizarro weirdos, and to the point where I get what they're going, and to the point where I'm like the guy going like, okay, let's step back a minute. Let's take, if you want to watch something, have you ever seen that Jeff Daniels show called The Newsroom? I think it was called The Newsroom.
Nope.
Have you ever seen that before?
Nope, never seen it.
I am going to pull the very first episode where it's interesting because the episode starts out where he is on a panel. He's on a panel at a college, and he's like the number one network news guy. He's like the guy. He's like the Walter Cronkite of the modern era, and everybody watches him. He's the important guy. And he's on a panel with two other people, and there's professors moderating the panel, and there's a group of people in the audience. And he really won't say much. He's very, the professor keeps sort of pushing him, saying, come on, what do you think? What do you think? And finally, he gives this like 5-minute narration of what he thinks. And it is filled with research that, and I did my research on his research, a lot of it is very true, talks about how in the world we are so far behind educationally. Our education system has slipped so far backward. And on the K through 12, situation, on the the higher education, it seems like all you ever hear about is transgender this, transgender that, sexual preference, DEI. I'm going like, okay, where does it come in that we're grinding out students who are good at what they do? They're smart, they're capable, if they're engineers, they're damn good engineers. They're some of the best engineers in the world. If they're doctors and lawyers and things like that, they're some of the best people in the world. What happened to that?
Yeah, but don't you think that some of the candidates, Brad, that you would consider to be Looney Tunes, don't you think that's their message too? Enough of the DEI, enough of the transgenderism, let's get back to basics?
John.
And just because they align with people who are super far right-wing doesn't mean they're wrong, does it? And let's you had a point, and I think I interrupted you about Danielle Tormala. Was there anything else that you wanted to say about her?
I think it's sad that she's essentially in the superintendent business. She's young blood. She's got to be like early 40s, I would say.
Yeah, I'd say, yeah. And
I'm thinking to myself, I think it's sad that someone that I sat in a room with who had so much energy and so much positive vibrations about how her job was to really help students and really motivate them and really get them to a point where when they graduated from the Wentzville school district, they were really well prepared for the world. I sort of feel bad the fact that she's gone because she had a bunch of people who sort of dogged her. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand it. I understand what you're saying, Brett. So I just looked it up. She's 47 and she lives in Cottleville. So here's a contrary opinion, Brad. No tears for Danielle Tormala. She could go to Webster Groves or Kirkwood or a progressive district and be embraced with open arms. And if she leaned into all I wanted to do was help foster an environment of diversity and tolerance, they would welcome her with open arms as a refuge, Brad, as a newcomer, so to speak, into their district. And here's my point, Brad. If you are a superintendent and you're earning close to $250,000 a year, I think she was earning $225,000 a year, and you can't handle a group of parents or school board members yelling at you, go to Webster Groves, go to Kirkwood, go to a progressive district. Let somebody else handle the quote-unquote problem of conservative parents and activists. Somebody else will do it, Brad. And I don't believe that the talent pool in the state of Missouri among career education people is so limited that Wentzville won't get another really good superintendent that's as good as Danielle Tormala. And Brad, she may have had great energy, and she may have had great vibes, and she may have made people feel good. And that's a wonderful thing for the Webster Grove School District or a progressive district. Why doesn't Wentzville hire somebody that matches ideologically where the parents and where the activists are?
But see, what you're highlighting is the fact that why should ideology be a part of this? Why do we even look at that? Why don't we say we want the best educator? Like, for example, the Cardinals, when they hire these pitchers and paying them, millions of dollars, they don't say, how do you feel about abortion? How do you feel about? They don't ever.
But Brad, but hold on. That's the point you're making, is that we need to get back to basics, and that isn't of itself an ideology. It might not be partisan, and it might not be abortion. But I'm telling you, I haven't been to a Wentzville school board meeting, but I bet you the conservative rabble rousers are making the same point you are, which is get white shaming curriculum out of here. Get teaching transgenderism out of here. Get these certain books out of libraries out of here. But Brad, my point is that she could be a hell of an educator, and like, I'm not weeping for her, because if she's that good, Brad, another district will want to hire her.
Well, you and I are saying the same thing, but in different ways, because of the fact that I say that, and my analogy with, they don't ask the pitchers they hire for the Cardinals what their viewpoint on abortion is, because they don't care. They want somebody who's the best damn pitcher. They want somebody who could strike people out. It's a meritocracy. They're not hired or fired because of their view on transgenderism or something like that. They're hired because they're the best person for that particular position.
Agree. And now, Brad, to that same point, if I was a Wentzville parent, I'd be more concerned with, okay, what is your philosophy on, this phonics versus some other reading, whole word reading? You know what I mean? What are you going to do to get our scores in math and reading and science higher than they are now? How are we going to maintain our status as an elite school district where people want to buy property and move into? I agree with you on that.
Okay, next thing, we've got to finish off the show. Lynn Schmidt, she's on do you know who she is?
Brad, I think on this brand new website, I think I linked to that. You should start going to my website, Brad. You'll see some interesting articles. For example, Lynn Schmidt column the other day that I linked to was called "The Unintended Consequences of Defund the Police."
You know what I'm talking about then, okay?
I do then, yeah.
I read this.
Go ahead.
I read this and I thought to myself, this is a Post-Dispatch editorial?
It's not an editorial, Brad. She's a columnist.
Well, but it says she's on the edit. I think I read her thing. It says she's
she is. So, but I mean, that's different than, she is the token Republican. If you go to my website, Brad, and you click on Lynn Schmidt, you'll see a list of her columns where I would describe her as a progressive Republican.
She says,
and she's known for criticizing Cori Bush, which she did in this column.
Right. She's on an editorial board member, as columnist, editorial board member. Okay. Once again, here's the very first paragraph. The closure of some St. Louis Walgreens stores is just one of the unintended consequences. I love that, the law of unintended consequences,
yes,
of defunding the police, in quote marks, rhetoric and policies, as well as the culture of allowing crime without consequences. It also serves as an example that depolicing, or even the idea of depolicing, hurts the very people it is trying to help. Guess what? In one paragraph, she's distilled the whole damn problem.
Absolutely, she has, Brad. You're right about that.
Cori Bush is going after her going after Walgreens because they're closing stores. Okay, Walgreens is not a not-for-profit.
That's right. They have shareholders. They have to make money, Brad.
Their motto is making money. And not only is their motto making money, but their motto is also taking care of their employees and now putting their employees in harm's way.
Absolutely.
And they have some stores, which they're shutting down a third store. This one's in North City, I believe. And Cori Bush is going after Walgreens. It's terrible what you're doing. These people. See, once again, the sad part of this is the people, the crumb bums, if you ever watch Bosch? The TV show, it's on Prime. It's really probably one of the best police shows you're ever going to see, and I mean that sincerely. It's wonderful. It's now in a different called Bosch Legacy. It's sort of a spin-off on it. Anyway, he calls these people S-birds, okay? And you could probably figure out what S*T is, okay? These people destroy it for everybody, okay? There are wonderful people in North City, and probably the wonderful people outnumber the S birds, if you know what I'm talking about.
For sure.
But the problem is the S birds ruin it for everybody.
Ruin it. And they're the reason why when Cori Bush complains, well, so many people need this Walgreens for their medication. You're right. Look in your own community for the people that are destroying it.
Right. And matter of fact, there's a story I read the other day that one of the police board members in Chicago says that, and he gave us an unbelievable number, that 95% of the crime in Chicago is perpetrated by 1,400 people. And
You don't say.
They know who those 1,400 people are. And it's to the point where it's like, okay, so what are those 1,400 people doing on the streets? But you hear these stories time and time and time again, like in New York City, where, remember we talked about this, was yesterday or last week, where the new thing, people are walking down the street and then somebody just punches them in the face.
Yeah.
And they had one guy who did it.
And now the upside real quick for Chicago is Danielle Tormala could move there, Brad, and her DEI would be embraced. Also, tomorrow on the show, according to the BJShow.co website, we're discussing WWE wrestling. Will we or won't we? Who knows?
You found it, didn't you?
You know, I saw that earlier, and I swear to you, when you told me the first thing, I was like, well, maybe that's always been up there.
No, I just changed it the other day.
Just added it.
I just changed it the other day.
What a great show we had today, Brad. Great job with Bill Eigel.
And I can't wait to go to another one of his fundraisers and get thrown out again. So
I know. Hey, Brad, between now and then, keep it at 12 o'clock, Brad.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?